For years, the Duggar family built one of the most recognizable reality television brands in America, centered around faith, strict values, and an image of large family perfection. Millions of viewers followed their lives on 19 Kids and counting, watching what seemed like a carefully curated world of discipline, tradition, and public devotion to conservative living. But behind that polished public image, a series of revelations began to surface that would completely change how the family was seen by the public, and ultimately lead to one of the most controversial scandals in modern reality TV history. Now, that story has reached one of its most defining and final moments: Josh Duggar's sentencing. After months of courtroom testimony, disturbing evidence presented to the jury, emotional reactions from both sides, and relentless media coverage, the former reality television star has finally learned how much time he will spend in prison following his conviction in a child pornography case. The sentencing hearing quickly became one of the most closely watched celebrity legal developments in recent years. As updates emerged from inside the courtroom, attention spread rapidly across social media, news outlets, and online forums. Supporters of the Duggar family, longtime critics, legal analysts, and curious former viewers all followed every detail as it unfolded in real time. Questions surrounded the case right up to the final moment. How severe would the sentence be? Would any family members appear in court? And how would the Duggar family respond publicly once the judgment was officially delivered? In this video, we'll break down everything that happened during the sentencing hearing, including key courtroom developments, emotional reactions, statements from legal experts, and the public response that followed. We'll also explore what this moment means for the Duggar family's public image, the long-term impact on their reality TV legacy, and why this case continues to spark such intense discussion across the internet. When the sentencing hearing finally arrived, the courtroom was already under intense public and media scrutiny. Reporters, legal observers, and members of the public closely followed every development, knowing this moment would determine how long Josh Duggar would remain in federal prison after his conviction. Federal prosecutors entered the hearing arguing for a substantial sentence, emphasizing the seriousness of the offense and the detailed findings from the digital forensic investigation. They pointed to the nature of the material involved, as well as what they described as clear evidence of knowing possession. In their view, the sentence needed to reflect both punishment and deterrence, sending a message about how seriously federal law treats these crimes. The defense team, on the other hand, pushed back strongly against the prosecution's recommended sentencing range. They argued for mitigating factors, questioning aspects of how the evidence was interpreted and emphasizing Duggar's personal history, family background, and lack of prior criminal convictions. They also asked the court to consider a lower sentence than what federal guidelines suggested. During the hearing, the judge reviewed multiple elements of the case, including victim impact statements and the detailed pre-sentencing report prepared by probation officials. These documents are typically crucial in federal sentencing, as they provide the court with a structured overview of the offense, its impact, and recommended sentencing ranges under federal guidelines. At several points, the emotional weight of the proceedings became clear. Victim impact statements, in particular, underscored the broader harm caused by crimes involving child exploitation material, shifting the focus beyond the defendant and onto the real-world consequences experienced by victims. After hearing arguments from both sides, the judge ultimately delivered the sentence, concluding the months-long legal process that had drawn national attention. The ruling reflected the seriousness with which the federal court viewed the case and marked the beginning of Duggar's long-term imprisonment. Once the sentence was announced, reactions outside the courtroom were immediate and divided. Some observers felt the decision was appropriate given the severity of the charges, while others debated whether the sentence met expectations under federal guidelines. Either way, the outcome firmly closed one chapter of the case, while opening another focused on its long-term impact on the Duggar family and their public legacy. Inside the courtroom, the moment the sentence was read marked a clear turning point in the entire proceedings. Josh Duggar stood as the judge outlined the final ruling, while the courtroom remained silent except for the occasional sound of paper shuffling and quiet reaction from those present. The atmosphere, according to reporters, shifted immediately from anticipation to a heavy sense of finality. Outside the courthouse, the reaction was almost instant. Live news broadcasts cut between anchors and on-the-ground reporters as the decision spread across platforms within minutes. Social media timelines filled with clips, commentary, and emotional responses from viewers who had followed the case from the beginning. For many, the sentencing wasn't just another legal update. It was the end of a years-long public story tied to the legacy of 19 kids and counting. Inside legal analysis segments that followed, commentators broke down the judge's decision in detail, focusing on how the sentence reflected both the severity of the charges and broader federal sentencing guidelines. Some analysts emphasized that the ruling sent a strong message about accountability in high-profile cases, while others debated whether the sentence would face any future appeals or legal challenges. At the same time, reactions from the Duggar family continued to draw attention. Observers noted that emotions in and around the courtroom reflected the personal weight of the case, particularly for relatives who had attended the hearing. Supporters and critics online remained sharply divided, with one side focusing on justice and consequences, and the other reflecting on the personal fallout and long-term impact on the family. As the initial shock of the sentencing settled, attention quickly shifted to what would happen next: the prison process, potential appeals, and how this case would permanently reshape public perception of one of reality TV's most well-known families. The online reaction didn't just fade after the initial wave of posts. It actually intensified over the following days. Clips from older Duggar family episodes began resurfacing across platforms, with users re-editing moments from 19 kids and counting to add commentary about what they now view as uncomfortable hindsight. What once aired as light family entertainment was suddenly being reinterpreted through the lens of the scandal, creating a very different public memory of the show. At the same time, discussion threads on platforms like Reddit, X, and Facebook split into clearly defined camps. One side focused heavily on accountability, arguing that the sentencing was the result of serious federal crimes and that public figures should face equal or greater scrutiny due to their influence. The other side pushed back against what they described as media sensationalism, claiming that the family had already faced years of public scrutiny and that ongoing coverage had become excessive. Legal analysts added another layer to the conversation by breaking down how federal sentencing works in cases involving illegal digital material. Many explain that sentencing decisions are guided by strict federal frameworks, which limit how much discretion a judge actually has. These explanations helped shift part of the discussion away from speculation and toward a more technical understanding of how such cases are handled in court. Meanwhile, commentary creators on YouTube and podcast platforms played a major role in shaping public interpretation of the sentencing. Some long-form videos focused on the psychological and social impact of the case on the Duggar family's public image, while others analyzed the broader implications for reality television ethics. These breakdowns often reached large audiences quickly, further amplifying public interest in the case. A recurring theme across many discussions was the idea of edited reality, the gap between what audiences saw on television and what was happening behind the scenes. Viewers revisited earlier seasons of the show with a more critical eye, questioning whether warning signs were overlooked in the pursuit of entertainment and ratings. This reflection extended beyond the Duggar family itself and into broader conversations about how reality TV shapes public perception. Religious and cultural perspectives also played a significant role in the online debate. Some supporters framed their response through faith-based messaging, emphasizing forgiveness, prayer, and family solidarity during crisis. Critics, however, argued that public accountability should remain separate from personal belief systems, especially in cases involving serious criminal convictions. This ideological divide contributed to the intensity of the online discourse. As the discussions continued, the Duggar family's legacy became increasingly polarized in public opinion. For some, the sentencing marked a definitive end to the family's television-era image. For others, it became a moment of reflection on media responsibility, fame, and how private struggles can remain hidden behind carefully produced public narratives, even as mainstream attention eventually began to shift toward other news cycles. Fragments of the conversation continued circulating online. Edited clips, commentary videos, and opinion threads kept the topic alive, showing how deeply the case had embedded itself into internet culture and discussions about reality television more broadly. As the sentencing outcome became widely discussed, the impact on the Duggar family's internal dynamics became more visible in the public eye. What had once been a tightly controlled family brand began to fracture into individual identities, with different siblings choosing different levels of separation from the family's past public image. For many viewers, this shift signaled that the era of a unified Duggar brand was effectively over. In the years leading up to the sentencing, several family members had already begun carving out more independent paths, often through social media rather than television. After the case reached its final legal stage, that independence became even more pronounced. Public appearances together became less frequent, and when they did occur, they were often interpreted through the lens of the ongoing controversy rather than the family's earlier fame. The sentencing also intensified long-running debates about the responsibility of reality television networks in shaping public perception. Critics argued that the Duggar family's wholesome image had been heavily curated for entertainment purposes, while troubling issues were either minimized or not addressed publicly at the time. In hindsight, the contrast between the on-screen portrayal and later revelations became a central part of how audiences reassessed the show's legacy. As conversations continued online, attention increasingly shifted away from the original television content and toward broader questions about accountability, oversight, and the ethics of long-running family-based reality programming. The Duggar case became a reference point in discussions about how much reality TV should reveal versus what it chooses to conceal. For many former viewers, revisiting old episodes of 19 Kids and Counting took on a different emotional weight. Scenes that once appeared lighthearted or inspirational were now often reinterpreted with skepticism, as audiences questioned what was happening behind the scenes during filming and production. At the same time, members of the Duggar family who had spoken publicly about their upbringing began receiving renewed attention. Their earlier accounts were revisited in interviews, podcasts, and online discussions, contributing to a broader re-examination of the environment in which the family's public life had developed. This shift in perception also influenced how media outlets covered the family moving forward. Instead of focusing on lifestyle or entertainment angles, coverage became more fragmented, often centered on legal developments, personal statements, or commentary on the family's changing public role. Ultimately, the sentencing did not just close a legal chapter, it redefined the Duggar name in the public consciousness. What had once been associated with a highly visible reality TV franchise became, for many people, a symbol of how quickly public narratives can shift when long-hidden controversies come to light. The sentencing of Josh Duggar marked the closing chapter of one of the most widely discussed scandals in reality television history. A family once known for its faith-based programming, traditional values, and public image of unity ultimately became defined by courtroom proceedings, legal consequences, and a deeply public fall from grace. For many viewers, the outcome of the case permanently reshaped how they view the Duggar family's time on television. The sentencing did more than deliver a prison term. It sparked wider discussions about accountability, celebrity influence, and the gap that can exist between public image and private reality. Even after the courtroom proceedings concluded, debate has continued online. Former fans, critics, and commentators still revisit the case, analyzing its impact and what it means for the Duggar family's long-term legacy. While the legal